Us. Now I'd like to introduce our featured speaker, Dr. Jennifer Beasley. Jennifer Beasley has more than 25 years of experience in education as an elementary school teacher, gifted facilitator, and university professor. After receiving an MA in Education Administration and Gifted Education, Jennifer completed her doctoral work in educational psychology at the University of Virginia. She is currently an assistant professor in curriculum and instruction at the University of Arkansas and works preparing pre-service teachers for today's classrooms. She received the 2012 College of Education and Health Professions Innovative Teaching Award for her work at the University of Arkansas. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to our guest speaker. Thank you, Dr. Beasley, for joining us today.
Thank you. Give us a moment. We'll kind of make sure that we switch screens so that you can see mine. All right. I'm excited to talk with you a little bit today about the adaptable classroom using the tools of technology to meet the needs of all learners. I absolutely love in today's classrooms all the different ways that educators are using the tools of technology, and they really are providing a lot of promise for students of all varying needs in the classroom. Specifically, I'm going to talk a little bit about students that are advanced in the classroom and students that are struggling a little bit as we're kind of thinking about how do we meet the needs of all learners. You're going to see a question pop up as a poll, and I'd love for you to answer this. I'm just curious about what age level you primarily work with. So if you'll just take a moment and answer that. And while you're doing that, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I see as the essential question for today's webinar. The question really is, how does technology hold promise for meeting the needs of all learners? That isn't a yes or no answer, or a right there answer. We really need to know how that does that. Just having technology doesn't automatically mean that we're going to be able to meet the needs of all learners. So we're going to come back to that essential question as we go along. Howard Gardner once said that technology doesn't necessarily improve education. He said, take a simple innovation like the pencil. One can use it to write a superlative essay, to drum away the time, or to poke out someone's eye. And I have a feeling that, you know, when I was first using some of the tools of technology, in particular I was thinking of PowerPoint, I think that in a sense I was kind of poking out someone's eye with that. We had, I had second and third graders, probably their presentations would be 200 slides. Every single one of them had an animation in it, and I think we kind of lost focus as to why we were using that tool. So that it definitely is something that we have to keep in mind. The other thing that we have to think about is kind of what does school look like? It has definitely changed a lot over time. The picture that you see on the left here actually came from a kind of a Dolch basic sight word about what school looked like, and this picture kind of came with it. And the one that you see on the right comes from a teacher's classroom, teaches high school, and you would think maybe this is the technology classroom, but actually this is the English classroom. And you can see that students no longer are sitting in rows. They could be in all different places. They've got their own iPad or laptop or whatever might be the case. And it really, to me, kind of shows in these two pictures just how schools have kind of transformed over time through the use of technology. When we're kind of thinking about how this webinar is organized, I'm going to really kind of stick to 5 points here. And these 5 points really come from a chapter that I wrote in Cases on Instructional Technology in the Gifted and Talented Education. And so I'm going to kind of stick with those. You'll find more in my chapter, but this is really the kind of the crux or the meat of that I want to get to. Number one, technology holds promise for differentiation, and when I'm talking about differentiating instruction, that really is meeting the needs of all learners. That's really what I mean by that. Number one, it can assist teachers in locating curricular experiences to attend to students' interests, readiness, and learning profile. It assists teachers in assessment, pre-assessment, ongoing assessment, even summative assessment. And it assists students in reaching the goals of the lesson or learning experience. Number four, it can extend the application of lessons to the real world. And number five, it provides students with opportunities to collaborate with other students. I'm going to look real quickly and see if maybe the poll results from the first question are available. Not seeing that quite yet.
I can announce them for you. It looks like
absolutely.
3% was 6th through 8th grade, 22% was 9th through 12th grade, and then 75% is university level.
Oh, perfect. Well, welcome to all of you, and those of you at the university level. Sounds like quite a few of you. Hopefully these will be some things, I'm in teacher education, can be some things that you can kind of pass down. The other poll that I kind of would like to find out, this will be the second one that's going to be pushed out to you, and that's really trying to find out how comfortable you feel with the tools of technology as we're kind of integrating more and more into the classrooms. The poll question is really going to ask you how you feel. If you really feel like you're kind of just beginning, if you're just a little bit further down the road, or you feel like you're an expert in that. And so I'll go ahead and ask that poll to kind of come out to you, and then we'll find out what the results are in this next section. All right, so the first, when we're thinking about how technology holds promise for differentiation, it can assist teachers in locating curricular experiences. Technology can help us find ideas for lesson plans. It can help us meet the needs of students. And for each of these, I want to give a couple of examples. And one of the examples is that we can go to professional organizations for information. And I always suggest to go to professional organizations first before you go to a random website that maybe doesn't have that kind of sponsorship. So this is an example of the National Science Teacher Association. They provide a lot of free objects, science objects, materials that a teacher can use. Say if a student has an independent project, they're wanting to learn more about the reef, and you want to give them a little bit more information. What I like about their science objects is, first of all, you can save them. If you log in, and it's free, you can log into your own account and save these objects, and they can be articles, they could be websites, but what I really like about it is that you can push play and it will actually read the article to the student. So if you have a student that's maybe younger or a struggling reader but still wants to access this high quality content, that can help them with that. Another way to assist students locating curricular experiences is giving them online learning opportunities. This is an example of a blog post that one teacher keeps in their classroom as they do some book talks in different ways other than maybe in the classroom. They do them through technology. Another online learning opportunity that I absolutely love is Google Lit Trips. It utilizes Google Earth application, and there are all sorts of books that are, again, this is a free website that you can find in a variety of reading levels and content levels. And when you click on it, you can download this application that will actually open up Google Earth, and it will kind of have you travel through this book on Google Earth. The kids can actually see, students can see where the book is taking place. They can go to those places on the Google Earth. Great for if you have a whiteboard, Promethean board in the classroom. It can help kids get some of that background information that they might not necessarily have to begin with. Podcasts are another wonderful way to locate curricular experiences. iTunes University, I have students all the time that would want to explore content in a deeper way, and going to iTunes University, finding a college course, an expert in the field. I have an example there, Ask a Biologist, where they can really kind of sit at the feet of an expert and listen to what's going on with that, and that's a great opportunity. Number two, it can help in assisting teachers in assessment. Technology can really help with that, and in that case, you know, your assessment, when we're talking about assessment, we're talking about pre-assessment, ongoing, and summative. It can help us collect information and can help us find that just right fit for our students. Examples are, you can find lots of assessment examples on differentiationcentral.com, Dare to Differentiate, wikispaces.com, and then I'm going to show you a couple of other areas as well. One of them is an app called Who's Next that you can have on your smartphone that helps you to randomly pick students to answer questions. That randomizer is awesome for just making sure that you're not just calling on the same students. There's also another great one that's very similar to this. It's called Stick Pick. And again, it's an app that you can get for your phone or your iPad. And the great thing about that is that you can differentiate for your students and saying, like, maybe Alice is somebody that really needs to, you need to ask maybe some more evaluative questions. It can help you kind of with question stems that you can kind of align when you're thinking about Bloom's taxonomy. You can kind of align those question stems. So when that person's name pops up, there are some question stems to help you make sure that you're asking higher level questions of your students. Jing is an application. Again, it's free. What it does is it turns your screen, your computer screen, into like a screencast, so that you can be pulling up a student's work, whether it's a website they've created, a paper they've written, and you can push record and you can talk through all of your feedback. You can highlight things, type on it, and then when you push stop, it has created a screencast of what you've been talking about. So it makes a little movie for that student to look at, so that they're listening to you giving feedback on what it is, the product that they've turned into you. So it's a wonderful way to assess a student's work in real time, and then they get that movie that they can kind of watch. Poll Everywhere is another free assessment software that you can create a poll. This one happens to be, you know, where they select how comfortable they feel, you know, what strategy that from last time they tried in their classroom. This happened to come from a professional development I was doing. But it can be also open-ended questions that you can ask students. They can either text it on their phone, or if they're on a laptop, iPad, something like that, they can type in their answer and it will pop up. Sometimes I'll have it on the Promethean board, and that you can actually see the bar graph or the comments coming in, and it's a great way for kids to kind of talk about what they're really comfortable with, you know, what a good discussion starter. Number three, before I go on to number three, I'm just curious, from that last poll that we did on how comfortable you feel with the tools of technology, let's just kind of hear kind of some of the responses.
Okay, it looks like 3% are just beginning to dip their toe in, 17 swim in the shallow end, 28% are competent swimmers, and then 52 feel comfortable in the pool.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really good to hear. Those of you that are feeling more comfortable and, obviously that's a good time to be sharing with a lot of people and helping them also kind of move along that continuum. So for number 3, it can assist students in reaching the goals of a lesson. Technology can really hold promise for that as well. Couple of ways that, that we can help students reach the goals of a lesson more efficiently and effectively is maybe by giving them alternative ways to access information. These are 2 examples. One of them, biguniverse.com, has a lot of stories, both fiction and nonfiction, that students can pull up on their iPad or on their computer, and they can kind of go through it. It won't read the story to them, but there's questions to the story. It gives them access to more texts than maybe even might be available in your classroom. The other one, LibriVox.org, is a wonderful resource for all different kinds of stories and narratives and nonfiction text that they don't actually show the book, but what they do is it's actually a recording of the book that you can, again, for free, click on and maybe listen to someone telling an Aesop story, or it could be an Edgar Allan Poe poem, and it's a kind of a volunteer organization, and I've even had some kids, some older kids that have volunteered to read out loud some text and send them into LibriVox as a way to kind of volunteer reading texts out loud. But it's a great way to kind of give kids different ways to access information. It can also help promote communication of ideas. Dragon Dictation and Natural Reader, they do just about the same thing. Natural Reader, it's again a free application that you can type in what it is that you want. Maybe there are some directions that you want students to follow, and it will actually read that text out loud. Dragon Dictation, I often use that with students that they're telling me a story out loud, and I use Dragon Dictation on my phone, and it helps to type up that story. It kind of converts those words to text. Again, it kind of helps with kids that are maybe having a hard time with writing or reading, a way for them to really communicate their ideas. The fourth way that technology can kind of hold promise for differentiation is that it can extend the application of lessons to the real world. Obviously, students are more naturally engaged and motivated when they can see how what they are learning in the class applies to their own world. One way that it really is as amazing that we can do with technology now is virtual tours can be a great way to apply what we're learning in the lesson to the real world. This is an example when I was working in Virginia. Oftentimes, lots of classrooms couldn't get to Colonial Williamsburg or, gosh, anywhere in the United States. You may want to go and visit that museum and look at some authentic artifacts from that time period. Well, Colonial Williamsburg Museum provides a virtual experience where you can actually walk the streets of Colonial Williamsburg and have kind of a 360 view of that, pick up an artifact, examine that, look at what the museum's written about that, and more as museums are kind of changing with the times. This is an area that has really blossomed, this virtual experience, having more students more of us to have access to these virtual experiences than ever before. This is just one example, but I'm sure many of you, those of you that are really advanced in technology, have had access to many, many others. Number 5, it can provide students with opportunities to collaborate. Technology really almost it's overwhelming with the amount of opportunities for collaboration. Creating community in the classroom is really the foundation of differentiation. In order for students to feel a part of a class, to feel that they can risk, they can grow, we want to create that community. And when we have our students share with one another, we've created an audience for their work, and we can have one more peek into our students' lives. The classroom is a perfect place to talk about what's appropriate to share. What do we do when someone shares something that shouldn't be shared? This is a time for us to kind of have those conversations in the class, not to squash it, but to kind of develop that conversation so that we can have that community. A couple of examples that have been used in classrooms are digital storytelling. These are very short movies where kids are communicating something that they've been learning. It can be a culminating project. Digital storytelling website that I have here is a great place to learn about what kind of software, how can you do it inexpensively, how can you create a place for students to share not only just with their own class but maybe outside of their class. And then the other technology is voicethread.com, which is where students take pictures and they can record. Maybe they're recording, again, kind of like a digital story or something that they're learning about this book. This one, it actually was a picture of William Shakespeare, and somebody made a comment on it. But the classroom themselves, all of the students in the class can go onto StoryThread and make comments. Either they type it up or they can talk, and it kind of comes across on VoiceThread. I actually have an elementary classroom teacher doing some research on this right now to try to enhance listening and speaking skills in her 3rd grade classroom as a part of Common Core State Standards. She's working on, can VoiceThread be another way to really help our kids have practice with that. So as we think about matching this technology with differentiation, that connection, technology can hold promise for differentiation if it assists teachers in locating curricular experiences that meet students' interests, readiness, and learning profile. It can assist students in assessment, assist teachers in assessment. It can assist students in reaching the goals of the lesson or learning experience. It can extend the application to the real world, and it provides students with opportunities to collaborate with other students. Really, when we think about what technology can do and how it can hold promise for meeting the needs of all learners, those are kind of 5 ways that I can see that connection being made. All along the way, you need to know that, for recommendation's sake, that you need to understand the principles of differentiating instruction. What does that mean to build a classroom community, to have clear learning goals, to meet the needs of readiness, interest, and learning profile. Another recommendation is understanding the technology itself. For me, my example at the beginning, I really didn't know what PowerPoint was all about, and I really misunderstood the use of that technology. So understand the technology, and does it meet the learning goals that you have in place? And then, as always, understanding classroom management. How are you going to manage all of that? There's some great resources out there. In the chapter that I wrote, I tried to break down especially these 3 recommendations and give some examples, some specific examples for classroom management in particular. As we get kind of ready to maybe ask some questions, those of you that might have some for for this particular webinar. Franklin Delano Roosevelt said we cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. And I feel that, you know, helping them access that technology in order for them to communicate better, to learn more deeply, I think that's a way that we can build our youth for the future. So I'll stop now, and if there's some of you that might have questions, I think perhaps there's a way for you to type those in.
I'll just announce them as they come in. Jennifer. Taryn asked, any ideas for a classroom that is not always live, e.g. I have students that listen to a lecture and log in whenever they like?
Yeah, that is a really good question. When you have an asynchronous class, sometimes you have to use tools that are asking them to reflect and talk with one another. So using discussion boards, for example, could be something that would be helpful. Or earlier I had talked about VoiceThread, making a digital story that is kind of helping them communicate with one another. That, again, that's building community. And also, sometimes as a teacher, you're not sure what it is that they're learning, and so the only way that you can do that is for them to reflect about what they're learning, or to talk about that through maybe Jing. That, you know, doesn't have to necessarily be for assessment. It could be they're examining an artifact online and then talking to you about that. So, yeah, that's a real challenge.
Dee asked, I wonder if teachers in K through 12 classrooms are using these types of technology more than instructors in teacher preparation methods courses.
Well, I can only speak for our program and some of the professors that I visited in the surrounding areas, and I would say you're probably correct. One of the biggest challenges in teacher education right now is keeping up with what is happening in the K-12 classrooms, and making sure that our teacher prep programs, these students are getting the experience they need in the university classrooms and through the projects and the products in their methods courses. And I think that's very challenging. Every single day we're going out into the classrooms and seeing, oh my gosh, now they're all, now it's a one-to-one laptop, so how do we help our teachers prepare for that? So that is a huge challenge.
Gabriella asked, how can you use the technologies to teach something like laws or research?
Laws or research? Well, I do teach an action research class, and we use technology quite a bit. I have them learning how to compress audio files, to do interviews with their iPhone, videotaping. We do a lot at our university library with how do we collect research journals, and how do we synthesize that. So we use a lot in terms of technology in research. I think as a researcher myself, I don't know what I would do without some tools of technology, like using the voice record on my iPhone or using a swivel camera to capture a classroom, using qualitative software to analyze data. So I think that's important to integrate that in no matter what kind of content we're teaching.
Gabriella also added, like, specifically researching for a thesis.
Absolutely, and that's what my master's students do. Is they are doing an action research project right now, and they have to do, in the fall semester, they do a 3-chapter proposal, and we use technology. We use Edmodo, which is kind of like Facebook, but for educators. And I have them in online research teams where they're collecting literature. Maybe they're all looking at the same dependent variable, like reading fluency, and they're finding some journal articles and sharing with one another what they found in the literature and in their little research teams online. And then each time they take notes, they post those on Edmodo. And then I also put a lot of resources. I have a website that I use for my action research class that has video clips and how to cite. There's videos on how to do a t-test. I think that there's lots of ways that you can do that specifically, and I'd be happy to share some of those resources with you. If you have my email, you can definitely email me that question.
Khalid asked, do you think tech is always easy to use in all subjects such as math?
Well, I think every content area has to ask themselves, why am I using this? Is it necessary? Is this tool really the most efficient way? If it's technology tool, is it the most efficient way for kids to learn, for us to get at the clear learning goals? So that's, you have to address where you're going, what are your goals, and how you're getting there. So I wouldn't say any content area it doesn't have a need for a variety of resources. I think technology just happens to be one of the things that we can use to help kids learn more efficiently and effectively. But again, it has to come down to the clear learning goals. Where is it that you're going with that in that content?
Willington asked, at the university level, which tool is the best one to keep track of students' progress? How can we mix assessment and progress in goals?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Keeping track of student progress. Oh, I don't know if I have necessarily the technology. I mean, I know that I often use Blackboard. That's our online component to our classes, where we keep track of students' assignments and grades and that kind of thing. But in the teacher prep program, we use an evaluation system when we go out and observe our students, and we keep track of that. And that this is a very simple use of technology, but in Microsoft Excel, and we look at how we're progressing in the different domains that we're looking at for instruction, for professionalism over time. But yeah, I can't think of one particular one that is like the tool for looking at assessment over time.
Khalid also asked, what about the misuse of technology in classes? How do you deal with that?
Well, yeah, again, I think it has to come from a leader in that school, asking some hard questions about why is it, why is that appropriate? How are we using the tools of technology? And again, coming back to what are the learning goals? In Wiggins and McTighe's Understanding by Design curriculum model, you've got to start with the end in mind. And so I have to, as a teacher, keep asking myself, is this getting to the students to the destination? And if not, why are we doing it? So that has to come from some, instructional leaders, an administrator, somebody that is kind of helping guide those, because we're human, and of course we want to try the next best thing, and we want to immediately use that in our classroom, and sometimes it's not a good fit for us, for our students, for the learning goals. Good point.
Omar asked, do you have any tips for incorporating social media in teaching and learning? Students really enjoy them. A second part to the question, I also wonder if there are applications for enhancing higher critical thinking in the classroom.
Yeah, well, I had talked just briefly about Edmodo. That's great for a university classroom, but actually I was introduced to Edmodo. A high school gifted teacher had talked to me about how he used this for his students, because in gifted education, especially in high school, even in middle school, that gifted facilitator may only see those students maybe once a week if they're lucky, and other than that they're out in other classrooms. And so a way for them to keep in touch with one another was through Edmodo. They set up a class. It was safe, and only they had access to that, and they could pose questions, oftentimes they'll have like a discussion question for the week, and they kind of talked back and forth with one another. That was a way for them to kind of keep track of one another through social media. A Twitter account, teacher could have a particular Twitter account that those students hashtag, my homework, and kind of keep track of what's going on. I knew a teacher that often would talk about their, remind kids of the homework assignments through her Twitter feed.
Paola asked, how do you assess the students' collaborative work, for example, using Google Docs?
I've heard a lot of teachers discussing this particular thing. In Google Docs, one of the things that one particular high school teacher did was she looked at how many times someone had commented or added to that Google Doc, looked at how involved they were in that. She had a rubric that she used to measure the collaboration and then the content that was involved in pulling that Google Doc together. And then one thing that's always important is adding a piece that might be independent. Maybe it's a reflection of that student's learning through that assignment, so that each person gets a chance to talk about what they learned, and also to reflect on it. They can also do a self-evaluation. How collaborative was I for this assignment? On a scale from 1 to 10, what would I rank myself? What would I rank other students in that particular group? Ways that we can kind of evaluate what's happening in that online collaborative environment. I think I don't have one right answer here. Definitely, I'm sure, just like my high school friend, a lot of people are creating materials so that we can look at that and make sure that we understand that all students are getting to the learning goals instead of just one person's doing that project.
Mohammed asked, is there any suggested free tool for doing the pre-assessment and ongoing assessment summative?
Well, in terms of, the poll everywhere, or there's a lot of smart boards, clicker technology that you can do pre-assessments, ongoing, and formative, where the kids, you'll get a kind of an output. Free, now actually a lot of Promethean boards or smart boards, you can get that app for free on your iPhone or on your laptop, so you don't have to actually pay for that clicker. And then poll everywhere, you don't even have to pay for the software. So that's kind of nice as well. I'm sure there's some other things off the top of my head. I'm not thinking of other things that are technology and are going to look specifically at pre-assessment.
Taryn asked, is a human face important in a classroom that is not within the confines of brick and mortar? I don't ever get to see my students in person, but do they need to see me?
Wow, that is a really deep question, and I think that's something that I think we need to ponder. Is it important that there is that human connection? I mean, as a human, I feel like it is, and maybe seeing you looks different in today's age than in the past. But I mean, I think it's important for our kids to get to know us as teachers just as much as we get to know them, because that's a part of building that community. Whether it's a short Kaltura video or YouTube, just a short video of you answering the question just like everybody else in the class, that may be, a quick way for them to see your face and who you are. But yeah, that's a really great question.
Paulo asked, what kind of skills and behavior do university students need to have to increase the use of technology in the classroom? And what kind of strategy do we need to develop to change our pedagogical methods to use more technology?
Tell me that first one again.
What kind of skills and behavior do university students need to have to increase the use of technology in the classroom?
Mm-hmm. Well, here's what I'll say, and I'll kind of end with this: is that Carol Dweck in her book Mindset really talks about that we either have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And when she's talking about a growth-oriented mindset, that's someone that feels that they can always get better, that they're not done, that we can always do more, that effort is important, that we can grow our brain, that we can always be working towards something better. Someone that has a more fixed mindset says, I'm either smart or I'm dumb, and there's really nothing I can do about that. People that have fixed mindset are more likely to give up or not try at something new, because they would rather look good to others than to risk failure. So what do our folks need in order to go out into the classrooms, in order to feel competent in technology? I feel that one of the things that we need to do is work towards a growth mindset, that this idea that we're not all smart or dumb, that we're constantly on a continuum of learning and growing, and giving our students feedback that, wow, look at you, look at the hard work that you put in and you got there, versus look how smart you are, you did it so fast. Those kinds of messages, and helping them to feel like they can continue to grow and learn. That's going to make them more flexible to changes that come their way, and more open to change. Yeah, those are some great questions. I thank you guys so much for participating in this webinar. Sometimes that's hard. I can't see you, you can't see me. There's no human face there, but thank you so much for your questions, and it's very encouraging to be able to share this and to hear some of the things that you're struggling with and thinking about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beasley, for the presentation. Thank you, everyone, for your collaboration and all the questions. You will find Jennifer's chapter featured in the reference source Cases on Instructional Technology in Gifted and Talented Education, which is also part of the Advances in Early Childhood and Education series. For more information on this title or other educational research in the IGI Global Collection, feel free to contact customer service or myself. Again, our webinar today has been recorded and all attendees will receive a link to access it directly. It is also available online on our website under online symposiums, where visitors can also view previously recorded symposiums. We hope to see you join us for future presentations. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at the email address on the screen. Thank you all again. Thank you, Dr. Beasley, and have a wonderful day.